Hey, this is Philip at thebest3d.com, and welcome back to another quick tutorial. This one is going to be on layers and perhaps showing one way that they are meant to be used, and still very useful, even though granted it's not the full layering system that you might want to see perhaps in a future upcoming major release. But I wanted to show you that you can certainly use layers for compositing various things. Not necessarily with the magic pink or blue screen composition or something like that, but simply to add tone, tonality, or some effects to certain scenes. And what we did here to start with, in fact, let me do this quick. I'm going to simply collect this and flatten this, and make this one a stored image copy here. So we have a final rendering here that's flattened. And I want to start from the original. So now this could be painted, or it could be something that you took a picture of. This is actually a rare sight in Southern California. It's raining today. We have some thunderstorms and lightning happening. And so I wanted to capture the opportunity, capture the moment to take this beautiful scene and do something with it. So the first thing I'd like to do is just make it a little bit more impressive on the darkness. In fact, it was already a bit more like this. Let me see if I can undo that, or open. Maybe I need to go and open the image again. I think the original was this one here. Okay, so the original is a fairly large image. If I open it in front view, you can see it takes a while to zoom down. Took that picture with my smartphone. It's a G4 from LG. Very high resolution. I think it's a 16 or 18 megapixel. And so I have some nice scenery here that I'd like to capture. Maybe I'm going to focus on about this much, and Control X to cut it, click outside, Control V to paste it. So now I have just that part. And next thing I'll do is make it a little bit smaller. It's still 4000 by 2000. Let's go half that size. And then Shift U is a nice way to give it some more contrast. I love the contrast tool in front view. You can see it under Image. Not Control U, but where is it? There, Shift U. Auto adjust color. So the auto adjust is a pretty darn good system that I'm going to start with, and then take that into Howler. So I'm going to go and paste it right there, replace it with a new image. Now, if I had not done that, or if you don't have Earphone View, another option, by the way, is to go, let's see where we have this image. I'm gonna go start with that one again. Let's this time do the resize first. So Control R to resample half and half again. Should be about 1200 or 1300 pixels. And now I'd like to actually copy that, but again, just a portion of it that kind of centers on those shades of gray. There it is. I'm going to copy that and put that into Howler right there. So this one's a little bit smaller. But what if we want to adjust the contrast on this? Certainly one thing you can do quickly from the image menu is expand dynamic range. That works great if it's already a grayscale, but even with colored content, it will work nicely in many cases. Or, of course, you could go to adjust filter and adjust the value, which includes adjusting other things like contrast and value and gamma. So there's plenty of ways to do that. I'm going to go with expand dynamic range. Okay, we did that just once. Now let's say we wanted to have it somewhere in between. This is the original. I'm going to go to expand dynamic range. It's great, but maybe too much, right? Maybe you want to adjust it. Just go to the interactive undo you have here. Click on this little green arrow, and you can adjust it between, before and after, or anything in between there. Nice little slider to give you a middle ground in between. Let's go and store this image, and now I'm going to open a additional layer. add a layer, and I'm going to select in that layer to put a copy of that stored image. So we're going to have 2 times the same thing. So that adds also quite a bit of contrast, because the default is a multiply mode. The layer is being multiplied to the one below. And so anything that's dark gets even darker if it's the same image on top of itself. Any pixel that's bright stays relatively bright, especially the brightest ones stay white. But anything that's an off gray will get slightly darker. So you get a nice increase in contrast there, and you can adjust the amount of opacity on that layer to perhaps again get something in between. If you want more of that, just add another layer and put that same image in there, and you get even more of that multiply action between the layers. All right, now I'm going to add one thing I wanted to do with this picture is add some God ray, some light that comes from this Mystic Vision filter we have. So I'm going to actually turn this filter, this layer here, into an additive mode. Now that's very bright, maybe too bright, and really what I'd like to do is have only the God rays kind of contribute or added to that. First of all, I need to create those rays. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and do my magic with Mystic Vision, and bring it somewhere up here. So we have those lights coming through. Increase the factor a little bit, increase the quality. You can adjust the level, but I'm going to go full intensity on that. Right, and so what you can do now is adjust some of that. And here's where you might want to also change perhaps from an additive mode to some others. And there are plenty to try. You can do tracing paper, and maybe that will reveal a little bit more of the God rays that you're hoping to see here. Maybe you can increase the contrast on those God rays as well. So go to adjust value again and reset that. And then see if we can bring out a little bit more of these light rays there by increasing the value or the contrast, or both. Right? You do want the rays to show brighter, but you don't want this lit area behind the clouds to be too bright. So you don't want to overdo it there. And so you need to experiment with that a little bit to find a way to kind of get more of these beautiful sun, we call them God rays, to show. Likewise, you might want to duplicate this image into another layer. So I'm going to store this, and so now we have another stored copy of this, and I'm going to go and add another layer, and that one will be in multiply mode. Excuse me, that one will be in subtract mode. Right, so subtractive mode. Now, since it's all white, everything gets down to 0, and then it's all multiplied to the bottom, and it's still 0. It's all black. What we need to do is erase this to black. Erase to black. So really nothing is happening yet with the pixels in this top layer. But if we put this in here, that's where we can also have a little bit of additional surprise activity here. We can make it an additive and make it even more additive to the one that's below it here. So you can do a bit of a play between the two, especially if the two are slightly different, right? If one is perhaps more narrow, more high contrast, and you want to add a little bit of structure to these rays. Another thing that I've also seen is that you can find some of these to be really interesting. There's the dissolve mode, the phoenix mode. Some of them actually will create some interesting negative impressions, and suddenly you have, look at this area up here. This could be really interesting for space art. You could get some sort of a birthplace of new stars. In fact, let me do that right now here. I'm going to call it quits with this the planetary, the clouds exploration, and I'm going to switch gear here. I'm going to go and flatten all this. And of course, you probably will want to save first, while it's still in multiple layers here. Save it as a layered file, so you can get back to that and change your mind as often as you want. But this is really something that I like when I just see this here. I say, oh my goodness, look at that. We've got some, it's just a little bit bright, so we need to have perhaps change the value again here, make it a little bit darker. Perhaps add a bit more contrast. I'll add a little bit of value and play with this. Perhaps remap it to different gradient. Right, so if you look at the gradients, we have the sweep editor. There are some gradients that will look really beautiful for that, especially if you use this tool here. You'll have a couple of presets to grab, and you might want to, for instance, look for this one here that goes from black to red to bright. And let's go filter, color, map to current gradient. There you go. That looks a little bit more hot and steamy. You could also go the other route, maybe cool dark blue. In fact, sometimes just inverting this will do some interesting things there too. That looks a bit more like the clouds again here, so I don't like that too much. Let's do an interactive undo and see if we have something interesting happening here. Just a lot of exploration you can do with this. But I'm going to go back perhaps to the gray image. This one, it's not exactly gray, but I can go and make it so with the grayscale, expose through lens. And what you want to do is keep a little bit of that granular detail you have up there. Right, something like this. And perhaps now it's time to focus on really what part is the most interesting here. Maybe I want to settle and focus here. Let's get the crop tool and grab the corner here. And maybe I don't need all that much. And do something like this. Crop that. I might want to resample that. Resample it a little bit bigger. So maybe I'm going to go bring this back to 1280. It's not exactly 720, but it's so close I can easily uncheck the constraint here and force it to 720 if that's the ultimate dimension I need for my artwork. And so now I have something that looks really beautiful, especially if I want to add some stars to that. If I want to let's see, add this. No, that's not the right size anymore. If I want to, well, actually let's just forget about this one here and just add a little bit more contrast, I would think here. Perhaps initially some value there. Reset that. There you go. Okay. All right, and then it's probably a good time to add a few stars, as we keep saying. So let's go and grab our gradient tool here. The right click gives you the lens flares, and that's always a fun place to explore. Planting a couple of stars. Let's say this blue one here. A couple of blue stars is probably what we need to focus on here. Put a couple. Let's zoom in a little bit here and put a couple of these stars close together, a couple of bright ones, and they are the ones that are contributing to that massive blast. You see this shock wave where the dark matter is going through, and it is what's creating this beautiful scenery here. Maybe we need a few that are closer and a different color. Let's say a red one here. That's blurring it out too much. It's hiding it. We want to make sure we still see all this beauty. Yeah, that's not bad. Let's see something over. There's too much of that lens reflection here, though. Let's go undo that. We would want to change the parameters on our settings here to do that differently. There's a few that I like. And then perhaps one in the front. How about this one here? It's very different. That one appears more in the front now, closer up there. Alright, so that's probably it for right now. Very chaotic space scene. It's never it, really, though. Let's be frank here. Let's be realistic. There's always something else we can add to it and play with. Add a little bit of light diffusion. Add a little bit of the soft contrast improvement. That one's also pretty nice, especially if you want that background to be really kind of a little bit blurry, a little bit you know, not taking the center stage of your artwork. You're going to have a planet in front, you're going to have maybe a spaceship or something else. So that's it for now. Just keep your eyes up on the skies. There's always something really fascinating happening with Pluto. Can't really see it from here, but sometimes imagining is better than seeing reality. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again very soon.